Okay, very good. Thank you so much, Jean-Paul, for that nice introduction, and good evening, everyone. Nice to see you all here. I have been to Penang before. I think I have been to Penang before, a long time ago, before I was a monk, I don't know, 35, 40 years ago, something like that. It's very nice to be back here again. Always nice to kind of see so many Buddhist people. I always say that one of the greatest benefits of being a Buddhist monk is that you meet nice people everywhere. That is good enough reason to become a Buddhist monk. When I hear all the problems that lay people have with other people, that's a good enough reason to be a Buddhist monk or to be a Buddhist nun. So there you are. There's many, many other benefits, but that is one that is underestimated. So I'm going to talk today about the idea starts to work. You start to understand why relaxing to the max works, because you are mindful, you are aware that relaxation happens as a matter of course, because you are sitting back and allowing the world, all the problems, just to fade away in the background, disappearing. And all that you are left with is mindfulness, pure and simple, that you then can direct towards the breath or whatever you wish. And so, what are these qualities that are talked about in the Satipatthana Samyutta? And one of these qualities that you find there, okay, two of the qualities you find in the Satipatthana Samyutta, which the Buddha says we should focus on, they are sila on the one hand, in other words, virtue and morality, and right view, ujjhakaditi on the other hand. These are the two foundations for Satipatthana. Yeah, and this is, I think, very, very interesting here. One of the kind of the standard ways of practicing Satipatthana in the modern world that you find in so many places is the idea of having mindfulness in daily life. Yeah, mindfulness in daily life, in all your activities. You go this way, you go that way. You wash the dishes, you vacuum, vacuuming mindfully, all of these kind of things. And the question then is, does that really give rise to more mindfulness? If you just are mindful, does mindfulness beget mindfulness? Do you give rise to more mindfulness simply by being mindful or by putting forth effort? And the answer is that the Buddha doesn't really say that mindfulness gives rise to more mindfulness. He doesn't say that making just effort to be mindful makes you more mindful. Sometimes it makes you less mindful because you try really hard to be mindful. Be mindful. Be mindful, for goodness sake, you're losing your mindfulness. And sometimes you get stressed out by trying too hard to be mindful, yeah? I know many people who say it's stressful. I try to be mindful all the time. I get stressed. And if you get stressed by mindfulness, what happens? You become less mindful then. Yeah, why? Because it's unpleasant to be mindful. If it's unpleasant, guaranteed your mind is going to run off into the past and the future, fantasize about this and that, and it's going to make it very difficult. How can you be mindful and stressed at the same time? You can't relax to the max. If you are stressed, it's the kind of the anti-relaxing if you are stressed. And so many of these things, okay, don't move. Many of these things are counterproductive. And so we need to go back to this idea of virtue, morality, and right view. That is where we find the supports for this practice. And so I want to talk a little bit about these ideas, how they actually support mindfulness. So we can become more mindful. We can use the Ajahn Brahm technique of meditation. And so, first of all, one of those, we all know that we should be virtuous. I'm sure you know that already. And very often we think of that as keeping the 5 precepts. I don't know if all of you keep the 5 precepts. Do you all keep the 5 precepts? Some of you, yes, you do. Okay, good, marvelous. That's wonderful to hear that. Some of you, maybe not, right? And if you don't keep the 5 precepts, I say, please keep the 5 precepts. This is the foundation for all Buddhist practice. Yeah? So please do that. And then you have a very good foundation, and then we take it from there and we take it further. Because the unfortunate thing is that even the 5 precepts is not really enough. The Buddhist idea of sila is actually very profound. The Buddhist idea of morality, the Buddhist idea of morality is really about kindness. Can you be kind? Yeah, through body, speech, and also through your mind. Are you able to have metta, friendliness or goodwill or loving kindness or however you want to translate that word? Are you able to have that or compassion at all times? Or do you sometimes lose it a little bit? It would be a miracle if you had it at all times. You can come up here afterwards and I give you a high five if you can do this at all times. I'll be very impressed because it's very, very hard to do that at all times. And so one of the kind of very important questions to me is how can we purify this virtue to the point where we are aware, where we know what we're doing sufficiently so that we can actually be kind and caring and do the right thing at all times. And to explain to you how to do this, I will tell you a simile that I've been using recently. Just having a look around. I have no idea what time it is. I'm just going to talk randomly until it seems appropriate. So how do we do this? And the way to do this, the only way to really have sila is for mindfulness to be there. But if you try to be mindful to have sila at all times, to think the right things, basically, you know that you're going to fail. It's very, very hard to have that degree of mindfulness. So how then can we do it? You can try and try as you might, and it doesn't work out. And so the way to have that kind of mindfulness, I will give you a simile to explain how this works. And so it is, imagine here in Penang, you have this large motorway, this enormous highway. We just came in on this highway coming over the Penang Bridge from the mainland. There's 4 lanes in each direction. But even the city streets here are obviously quite busy with a lot of cars and things. When you come to one of the streets here in the city of Penang, what do you do then? Do you just walk into the street or do you look left and right before you cross? Presumably you look left and right, you don't just walk into the street, because if you just walk into the street, that might be the end, right? And you're not an arahant yet, so you can't afford just to walk into the street. Wait until an arahant, okay, then you can walk into the street. So, and what is interesting about this, it doesn't really matter how distracted you are. You can be super duper distracted. You can be on your phone. And people are on the phone. I don't know what they're doing on the phone, but they're texting while they're walking or watching TikTok or filming themselves. I have no idea what people do on their phone. But anyway, whatever it is that they do, sometimes they are so completely distracted. They're kind of walking around. But regardless of how distracted you are, even if you have zero mindfulness when you come to that, okay, not zero, 0.001% mindfulness, even if you have almost 0% mindfulness, when you come to that street, you will still look left and right before crossing that street. You won't forget it. So what that means, thank you so much. Okay. Mm-hmm. I see a little bit of mindfulness. Okay. Now falling off again. Okay, never mind. That's all right. It'll be all right. So the point here is that when you come to that street, the reason why you look left and right is not because of mindfulness. It is because you know deep down that it is dangerous. You know that if you walk into that street, your life is very likely to be very short. That's what you know. It means it's very dangerous to walk into that street. And that knowledge of danger, the understanding that something is dangerous, that is what you might call right view. It is right view because it is correct. It's accordance with nature. Human body is very soft and kind of, whatever it is, compared to a car or a lorry or a truck or a bus or whatever. So if you walk in there, that's it. You had it. This is called right view. And so what this means is that even if you have zero mindfulness, if you have right view, then you will stop anyway, right view is more powerful than mindfulness in reminding you what you should be doing. And so this means that if you want to be more virtuous, if you want to develop your virtue, what is more important than just being mindful is what the whole world tells you: be mindful, then you can be kind, then you can be virtuous, but often it doesn't work. So what you have to do instead is to have right view. And that right view will inform your mindfulness. And then when that mindfulness is informed by right view, then you will be able to take the right action. Then you will be able to be kind. Then you will know that what is bad and what is good, and your mind will be leaning in the right direction towards metta and all of these kind of things. So right view is the critical one. And now you can see what I was talking about before, this idea that satipatthana requires right view, sati requires right view. When you have right view, then you can also be virtuous, fully virtuous, completely, mind, body, and speech. You can be kind whenever that is required, etc., etc. Does that make sense to everyone, what I'm saying? Yeah? Wow, I'm glad to hear that. It's always like, to me, it always makes sense, but to the audience, sometimes the audience, what is he talking about? Oh, okay. That's kind of scary. So I'm very glad to see that it makes sense to you. So that is how it works. So how can we have that right view in regard to virtue? What does it mean? And what it means we understand the importance of virtue, how significant it is, how urgent it is, understanding that if you don't have that sense of urgency right now, well, then you will not always follow what is appropriate. If you have a very powerful sense that this really matters, then you will do it. So how can we have that sense of urgency? Yeah, that now it is important. I can't really wait. I can't afford to take 2 steps forward, 1 step back. You know what it is like sometimes on this path. I can't really afford that. So how can we do this? And one way of doing that, a very powerful way, an aspect of right view. Right view has so many aspects to it. Very often we think of right view means that you believe in rebirth, you believe in karma, and that is part of it, but often it is too superficial, it's not deep enough, it is not motivating enough, it is not emotional enough. We are driven by emotions as human beings, and so we want to bring emotions into this. Emotions is what drives us, motivates us to do things. So how can we be more emotional about this? And the answer is, one way of doing this is to remember impermanence, anicca, uncertainty, unreliability. Often we think of the idea of anicca, which is the Pali word for often rendered as impermanence. To me, impermanence is, okay, it's not a super kind of powerful translation of this word, because impermanence sounds like, yeah, maybe good, maybe bad, depending on the situation. If you break a leg, then impermanence is good, because a leg grows together again, so hooray for impermanence. So that's kind of misunderstanding it, if you take it as something positive. So the idea of unreliable is far more powerful, because something that is unreliable is inherently negative. Yeah, an unreliable friend or an unreliable whatever, and that is always negative. So unreliable is a nice way of thinking about the idea of anicca, yeah, instead of impermanence. And one of the things that you find out very soon is that Venerable Jayako's mom? I don't know. I was looking at, I have no idea what's going on. We have a monk in our monastery in Perth who's from Penang, and I thought maybe his mother would be here, but maybe she's not. So we have the idea of impermanence is very easy to see in the world if we look around. Especially now when we see so many things going wrong in the world, yeah, so many things heading in the wrong way. It's actually an opportunity to understand the world in a deeper way. So when you see things going wrong in the world, and there's plenty of things going wrong in the world, you see wars flaring up in different places, you see the superpowers kind of saber rattling with each other, you see the environmental disasters around the world, you see the refugees happening, you see now the wars, trade wars happening around the world. Yeah? When you see all of these things, there's 2 ways we can react to that. One is to say, oh no, look at what's happening in the world, or you can get angry and upset and all of these kind of things. That is not a very wise reaction to what is happening in the world. The wise reaction to what is happening in the world is to say, well, this is exactly what the Buddha said. Things are impermanent. Things are unreliable. Vaya Dhamma Sankara Appamadena Sampadeta. This is the last word of the Buddha, and because it is the last word, it is very powerful. Vaya Dhamma Sankara means that conditions or phenomena, all the phenomena in the world, Vaya Dhamma have the nature to end, to stop. Vaya means like to end or to kind of come to a stop. All phenomena in the world have a nature to end, to be impermanent, to be unreliable. So if you see a war, this is exactly what the Buddha was saying about the world. This is exactly what he's talking about. And so you know that when you see that, okay, well, the Buddha was right. Surprise, surprise. We kind of should expect the Buddha to be right, yes? So it's not so surprising. Of course the Buddha is right about these things. Everything kind of goes a bit haywire. Everything goes funny. So what does the Buddha say is the solution to that? Well, one of the solutions to that is to take, he says, take yourself as a refuge, take the Dhamma as a refuge, be an island unto yourself, let the Dhamma be an island for you. That's what he says, and that means practicing, of course, the spiritual path. And so when you see the world going wrong, that is a reminder that the world should not be a refuge for you. If you get upset by what is happening in the world, it means you have taken the world as a refuge. You're expecting the world to go in a certain way. You're expecting the world to head in a certain direction. And you are attached to that to some extent. And then you get upset when it goes wrong. So this is a reminder that the world has this nature. This is to be expected. It's not going to go where you want it to go. It's going to be unreliable, uncertain, head in the wrong direction. And the world is, for that reason, actually quite scary, quite unstable, quite unreliable. Come back to spirituality. Come back to the teachings of the Buddha. Take refuge in the Triple Gem and the practice of the Noble Eightfold Path. That is the real refuge, because that is stable, that is reliable. The laws of spirituality are always there, and they always work in the same way. This is what the Buddha also says in other places. So this is the first way to get the sense of urgency. I have to practice the spiritual life. If this is the way the world is, the spiritual life is all that really matters at the end of the day. That is what I should be doing. So this gives you a sense of this urgency, and and when that is at the back of your mind, when you remember that, because that sense of the unreliability of the world is lodged inside of your mind in a very deep way. It means that you gain this ability to be kind at all times. You don't allow yourself to be angry. When other people do something bad, you have compassion instead, and you understand them in the right way. So this is one way of having a sense of urgency. Another great way of having a sense of urgency is to remember that you are going to die one day. Life is sometimes quite short. You get born into this world, you go to school, study really, really hard. I'm sure here in Penang you study super duper hard. I can imagine that. I know what it is like sometimes. And you go to university, study even harder. You study hard at school, get into university, even harder at university, get a good job. You work even harder at the job, and get even better job, and then an even better job. And then you become a pensioner. And then you die. And you wonder, why, what was this all about? I did all of these things. Everyone else did it. I just followed along. And then you realize just following everyone else was not such a good idea, because they didn't know where they were going. And now you're just following along, like a sheep, walking along, ding, 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 coming to the cliff, bing, you go over the cliff. The only sheep that does not go over the cliff is the black sheep. The black sheep turns around just in time, ding, walks to one side and kind of goes out, does not go over the cliff. That's the black sheep. So be a black sheep. Well, actually, but don't be entirely black, because that doesn't sound so good. But the way I like to think it is that it's not a kind of a group of white sheep, it's a group of black sheep. There's one white sheep, and that white sheep goes out and all the black sheep go over the cliff. Yeah. So be that single and be that white. That's like the Buddha. The Buddha was like one white sheep who went off in a different direction. Everyone else went over the cliff, but not the Buddha. So follow the Buddha. Yeah. Be a black or white sheep, depending on how you think about it. Yeah. Walk a different direction. So you're going to die. And because you're going to die, and the point here is not that you are going to die. The point is you don't know when you are going to die. That is the real point. And because you don't know when you are going to die, the only time you can do the right thing is now, is the only time. Because the next moment you may no longer be here to do the right thing. Now is the only time. And if you don't do the right thing now, you may never do it. I like the idea. I like to think that I like to think that I'm always on my deathbed. Yeah, because I don't know when I'm going to die. I'm actually on my deathbed right now, or my death chair, whatever, however you want to look at it. But there's no such thing as a death chair, right? Maybe this one is a death chair. Is this a death chair? I'm not sure. Maybe this is kind of a unique experience, the death chair. But I like the idea of always being on your deathbed. Because you don't know when you're going to die, you could be on your deathbed now. And the moment you think like that, it changes your outlook. It changes what are your priorities. Your priorities is not to get on in the world. Your priorities is not your next thing that you want to do, your next entertainment, your next meal, your next relationship, or your next car or whatever. All of that is irrelevant. All of that doesn't matter anymore. And that means you are reducing your attachments and your desires because the future is no longer interesting if you are on your deathbed. It also means you don't really get angry with people, right? If you're on your deathbed, you're not going to pick a fight with people on the deathbed. Yeah, I haven't done that. I haven't kind of sorted this out. You come over here quickly before I die so I can tell you off. That's not what happens on the deathbed. You don't want to tell people off on your deathbed. You want to be peaceful. Yeah, you sometimes, I don't know if you have seen people dying, but some people are really good at dying. And when they die well, they are peaceful on the deathbed. They don't pick fights. Yeah, they are relaxed. They are at ease. So this is the right way. Yeah, I don't know, there's a story that Ajahn Brahm likes to tell. I'm sure he has told it here before, but it probably bears to be repeated. And this is the story about a nun who was dying in Perth. She was a Tibetan nun. Yeah, you may have heard this story before. And it's a nice story because it tells something about the right attitude to dying. And so Ajahn Brahm would come to the hospital and he was going to say goodbye to her and kind of give her the last best wishes and maybe do some chanting or whatever. I don't know what he does for, actually I do a little bit. I know a little bit about what he does for dying people. And so he came to her room and as he was walking down the corridor coming to her room, and a nurse said to him that, no, you can't go into her room. She says, she doesn't want to see anyone. Yeah, look, there's a notice on the door. It says, don't come in. Ajahn Brahm had looked at the notice, and then in small writing underneath it said, "Except Ajahn Brahm." And so then Ajahn Brahm goes into a room, and you know what Ajahn Brahm does? He tells a few jokes, tells a few nice stories. Yeah, he reminds her of her good qualities, that she's been a wonderful man and a wonderful friend for such a long time. That is the kind of person you want to have on your deathbed. Yeah. Someone who kind of makes you feel at ease, makes you feel happy, not someone who comes crying, no, oh, it's terrible, please don't die. I'm dying, I can't please not die. You can see how silly that is. It's kind of funny when I hear it afterwards. You're dying, for goodness sake, I had no choice. It's not, I didn't choose this to happen. And so anyway, this is the idea of dying. It makes you peaceful when you're going to die. You let go of the future. You let go of the hurt of the past. You don't want to have any arguments. You don't want to crave about anything. You don't want to attach to anything in this world. Why are you going to attach to anything in this world when you have to move forward? You have to leave this world behind. Your mind is almost forced to let go. You have no choice. You have to let go. And so this is the idea. It's a very, very powerful contemplation, the death contemplation. So if you feel at ease with it, use this to bring this reality into your life now. If you feel uncomfortable with it, be gentle with yourself. It's very important. Don't force things. But if you are at ease with it, use this. Instead of waiting till you actually die, use this beautiful contemplation to enhance the quality of your life right now. This is right view. Using that right view means that you become a better person. You start to think in the right way. Suddenly, your morality, your sila, all of these things come together because the right view is there at the back of your mind, overseeing everything that you do. And then whenever you come into a situation when you are tempted to do the wrong thing, that overseer will come out. That is called wisdom in Buddhism. Will come out and will guide you in the right way. This is how it works. Right view leads to sila. Sila leads to mindfulness, building up like this. So this is one way to think about the idea of right view. I will give you another way. So another way, one of the kind of really difficult things in life, one of the things that we are all struggling with is difficult people in our lives. Is there anyone here who has never met a difficult person? Nobody, yeah? Everyone here has met difficult people. And it doesn't matter, exactly how or why that is, or whether our perceptions even are right sometimes. Sometimes people seem difficult and maybe they're not difficult. There's all kinds of things going on there. But everyone meets difficult people. And sometimes people are really difficult. So if someone treats you very badly, if someone abuses you verbally or whatever it might be, how can we avoid reacting to that in a negative way? How can you avoid getting angry with someone who treats you badly? This is one of those big questions in the Dhamma. Yeah? How can we react with kindness? Be compassionate in return. Maybe difficult to have metta. Yeah? Oh, I wish you well when they're abusing you. At least you can have compassion. Yeah? This is kind of the good thing. So how can we do that? And here again, right view comes to the rescue. Because right view in Buddhism is that that person is not doing that out of their free will. They are not doing that because they want to hurt you, because they have this kind of enmity against you. Now I'm going to get you, because I want to get you, or whatever it is. It is not a free will thing. The Buddhist teaching, this is one of the kind of most profound aspects of the Buddhist teaching, which all Buddhists kind of agree on, is the idea of non-self. Non-self means that what we are as human beings, we're getting some help from our friends, the Muslims. So the Buddhist idea of non-self means that what we are as human beings right now is we are the sum total of our conditioning. All the things that have happened in the past, all the past lives, all the things in this life, your family, your schooling, how you were brought up, all the things that have conditioned you in one way or another, all of those things, they come together and create the person that you are now. There is nothing apart from that. There is no inherent essence that stands apart from conditioned phenomena. It stands its ground and says, yes, I decide, separate from this phenomena. You are what you are. Very many of these things are very strongly ingrained habits, very, very powerful habits. And then when you are in a certain situation, you act out those habits. Why? Because you have no choice. It just comes out of you. If I ask each of you here in the next week, never get irritated even once, can you do that? Can't. It's very hard to do. Maybe if you're an arahant, and if you're an arahant, great. But if you were an arahant, you wouldn't be here anyway. So you would be somewhere off in a monastery or something like that. You would not be. So it is a very, very difficult thing to do. And so that means that you are not really in charge of yourself. You can't control these things. The way that we are, the way we react to the world, is because of our conditioning, because of our habits, because of how we have been constructed as human beings, because of past conditioning. And so once you understand this in a very, very deep sense, then when you see someone or someone treats you badly, remember that this has nothing to do with you. It is not about them treating you badly. It is not about one self treating another self in a bad way. It is about one conditioned process interacting with another conditioned process. Do you see yourself as a conditioned process? Yeah, if you do, well done. Yeah, because that's basically what we are, each one of us. We are these conditioned processes. And when you see another conditioned process acting wrongly, you know that they probably don't even want that. They probably want to be kind. I believe that everyone in this world pretty much knows that kindness is the right way to be, because we know somehow intuitively that kindness leads to happiness for ourselves and others. Deep down, we know that. And often, even though we know that, we cannot stop ourselves from doing bad things. So when you see this person doing something bad towards you, yeah, it's actually not towards you, it's really about them, it's just their conditioning happening. You happen to be there at the wrong time in the wrong place. Or maybe it's the right time in the right place. Yeah, it's a chance to practice Dhamma. That's always the right time in the right place. So when you see that, then what you should do is the right response is to have compassion. Because here is someone who is trapped in bad habits. Here is someone who is trapped in doing something bad when they should be doing something right. And deep down, they probably want that. And that's kind of a little bit heartbreaking, yeah, when someone thinks that they are creating goodness in the world, they think they are doing the right thing, but actually what they're doing is producing suffering for themselves in the future. How can you not have compassion for a person like that? That's a good point, isn't it? How can you not have compassion for that person? It's madness not to have compassion for someone who treats you badly. Because they don't know. They are trapped. That personality they have created is a personality which isn't wholesome. They can't step out of that. They're caught in a trap, caught in a habit, caught in a personality that has been formed in this negative way because of cause and conditions that they are not really in charge of themselves, but somehow have worked upon them. So next time you see someone like that, don't look behind the facade. See the depth of the conditionality. And the moment someone treats you badly, the moment someone says something which is unpleasant, actually you react with compassion instead. Don't say anything, for goodness sake, right? If you say something that's going to get worse, just have compassion in your heart. Don't kind of blurt out, oh, I feel really sorry if that's going to make it much worse. So just allow it to be. Don't be foolish in that sense. This is how we can have almost perfect morality. If you look at all people in the world in this way, you will not fail always to have the right qualities in your heart. And so this is how right view in two aspects. The right view, first of all, of seeing the urgency of the problem, seeing the danger, you can die at any time, and also the right view of non-self. They come together and enable you to almost always do the right thing. You can become far more moral and kind and good person by thinking in this way. Right view leads to morality. That morality leads to mindfulness. Because if you have no ill will, you have no negative thoughts, your body and your speech is in a very good place, you tend to feel really good about yourself. Yeah, if you have metta and compassion all times, you feel good about yourself. When you feel good about yourself, it's easy to have mindfulness, easy to be present. So this is how the ideas of virtue and right view come together to help you to be more mindful, and then enables the meditation, enables the whole path to work forward. But there's one more way that this works. And this one more way is that right view also has a much more immediate effect on mindfulness itself. What I've been showing you now is how right view leads to virtue, virtue leads to mindfulness. But there's also a way in which right view actually supports mindfulness more directly. So how is that? And the how of that is that the right view gives you the right values in life. Yeah? What are your values? What is important to you? Are your values related to the world? To what you can get out of this world somehow? Or are your values related to the spiritual path? And why is it that your values are one way or the other? And the way that you know your values is if you sit down in meditation, you close your eyes, and what is happening in your mind is, thinking about work, thinking about family, thinking about dinner this evening. I don't know if you ever go on 8-precept retreat and you get so hungry in the evening. Oh no, this 8 precepts, bloom and 8 precepts. when I think I'm never going to have 8 precepts the rest of my life, this is terrible stuff. What a bad idea. Sometimes that happens when you go on the 8 precept retreat. Yeah, I mean, I've been a monk for 30 years. So after 30 years, you kind of get used to it. Hopefully. Otherwise, you have a real problem. But if you are an ordinary person, you're used to having dinner in the evening, and then the evening comes, there's like a vacuum starts to create it inside, yeah? And then you get sucked into that vacuum, and your tummy rumbles and all this kind of stuff. And it's kind of bad when that happens. So it's kind of hard to do that, yeah? So you can see why this is difficult. And so we need to have the right values. When we have the right values, when we understand what really is important in the world, then mindfulness happens almost automatically. So all of those thoughts that we have when we meditate, they are because of wrong values. If you have the right kind of values, what happens is that your mind easily just goes to the breath, hangs out with the breath, because it knows the spiritual path is what is interesting. So how do we do this? And again, one of the ways of doing this is to remember that all of the things in the world are so incredibly unreliable, so incredibly uncertain. There's one of the similes that you find in the sutras, in the sutta called the Potalya Sutta, which I often talk about, Majjhima in the middle sayings of the Buddha, number 54. And it has a whole sequence of 7 similes about the things of the world and how unreliable and uncertain they are. And one of those similes is the simile of the borrowed goods. Have you heard about that simile before? Okay, great. So the simile of the borrowed goods is the simile that everything in the world is like borrowed. Yeah, you come into this life, maybe you think you have an apartment, you have these belongings, you have these relationships, you have a status like this, you have an education, whatever it is. But remember, all of these things, they belong to this life. Yeah, when you die, it's all going to have to go. Many of these things have to go even before you die. But everything has to go at the very least when you die. All your belongings have to go. It's kind of heartbreaking, but all your relationships too are going to have to go. Wait a minute. That's scary. That means Ajahn Brahm, I have to let go of Ajahn Brahm. He's my teacher. What am I going to do without Ajahn Brahm? Wow, okay, now that I'm reminded, okay, I better let go of Ajahn Brahm as well. Everything has to be let go of, yeah? Even the things that are more dear to you, even the Buddhist teachings, maybe not, depends on what happens when you die, all of these things. And so the point here is that all of these things are like borrowed goods. You have them for a while, and then you have to let them go, and they have to disappear. So how do you think about borrowed goods? It's like having a borrowed or rented car compared to having a car you own. Well, how do you treat a rented car compared to the car you own? It's a very different attitude. Yeah, if there's a car you own, you polish it, you make it very beautiful. Is that what people do in Penang? Do they polish the cars? Yeah, like they do. Okay, so this is like kind of, I used to live in Germany when I was a child, and the Germans, I really liked their cars. Yeah, so they would polish the cars, always look good. Every Sunday they would polish the car. They wouldn't go to church; they polished the car instead. But if you have if you rent a car, you're not going to go on polishing it like that. You're going to treat it in a very different way. You're still going to treat it nicely because you are a good person. You're not going to vandalize and treat it badly, but also you're not going to go that extra mile and treat it with kind of special reverence like you do with your own car. You're going to have a different attitude towards it. And so you can see how this attitude of borrowing compared to owning is quite different. So the moment you understand that everything in this life is borrowed, your attitude to it changes. You look at it in a different way. You start to understand, actually, I need a bigger picture. So what is it that I actually own? Well, the Buddha said that the one thing that you own is your karma, right? Your karma is what you own. Ultimately, you can say maybe even the karma is owned, but the karma is much closer to being owned than anything in this world. And so that means that what you should focus on is how to live well to the maximum of your ability, so you can take with you into the future your good karma, What is that good karma? Well, basically, it's like building up a beautiful mind, a mind with all kind of good qualities, with generosity of the heart, with a sense of compassion for all beings, with a sense of kindness to the world, with a sense of peace maybe in your heart. These are the things that are worth building up, because the mind, those qualities of the mind that you build up in this life, that is what you take with you into the future. That is what the focus should be on. And so this, again, is this idea of right view. Your values change. You have a different idea of what really matters in the world. Forget about all those ordinary things. They're not really that important. Or they are important, but they are only important insofar as you use them to build up spiritual qualities. So tomorrow morning, what is it today? Today is Monday, is that right? Okay, tomorrow morning, maybe you're going to work, I don't know what you're doing, go to work or whatever it might be. Yeah, because of this talk today, I'm being very optimistic here, but because of this talk today, you go to your office tomorrow morning. Actually, what did I hear in that Dhamma talk yesterday? Okay, don't be too concerned about, getting everything in the world to work out, solving all the problems. Be more concerned with how you live. Okay, what does that mean? Okay, going to office. It means I should be kind to people. Maybe I should be kind to my co-workers. Should be kind to the customer. Be kind to the boss. I don't know if you have bad bosses here in Penang, but people often complain about the bosses. I don't know. Be kind to your boss. When you go back home with your family, how can I live my family life with more compassion, more care, more kindness? How can I treat my fellow Buddhists with more care, compassion and kindness? How can I infuse my entire life, every moment of my life, with these things, so I can build up something that truly lasts for the future? This is how your values change. You understand what really matters in this world. And what you find, of course, is that not only do these things matter for your future, the long-term future. Here we have to take into account the idea of rebirth, which, of course, from a Buddhist point of view, is the way the world works. This is kind of the way the world is. And so you bring this into your larger view. You invest for the long term instead of investing only for the short term. Don't believe them. When you go to the bank and the bank says to you, invest for the long term, not for the short term, the bank doesn't know what it's talking about. The bank doesn't know what the long term is. They think 20 years is long term, 20 years is short term. The Buddha is the greatest investment advisor in human history. He is the one who understands investment. Come to the Buddha, ask the Buddha how to invest. This is how you invest for the long term. Don't go to those blooming banks. They haven't got a clue. They don't know anything. They have got wrong views. How can they possibly know what real investment is like? Anyway, that's what I say. So this is how your values change. When you sit down in meditation and you start to try to watch your breath and you see that your mind goes to all those worldly things, remember that those worldly things are temporary. They are impermanent. Maybe never will you be able to go back to them again. There's something far more important, developing your spiritual qualities. And right now, in meditation, that means watching your breath. Moreover, all of those things of the world, all of the problems we have, all the things that we try to resolve, they just go on. There is no solution in the world. This is why we see now the wars in Ukraine, the wars in the Middle East, the problems everywhere. The reason we see that, the reason why it always recurs, is because there is no solution in that world. We have this idea in humanity that somehow we're moving, everything is always getting better, right? Are we moving in this way? You read some of the modern authors, the way they talk about the world. If you look at the big picture, there's less wars, there's less criminality, everyone has lower life expectancy. But they're only looking for short periods of time, 2,000 years maybe. What's that? 2,000 is nothing. 2,000 years, who cares about 2,000 years? It's about the long term. When you look at long term, it is not like a linear movement of time, starting here and getting better and better. It's like, okay, it gets better and better and better. Then it goes down again. Then it kind of comes back. You get reborn. It goes around in circles. You get reborn again and again. They go around. And every time you come back, you start pretty much where you were last time. And then the whole universe comes back again, yeah? And then the whole universe comes around again. And of course, in the long run, because it goes in cycles like that, we're actually not going anywhere. There is no solution in that realm. And so the moment you understand there is no solution, why try to solve the problems? If there is no solution, there is no problem. There's another of these famous stories that Ajahn tells. This was, I think, one of the prime ministers in the UK back in the 1960s, Harold Macmillan. I don't know, you may remember Harold Macmillan from a long, long time ago. And this was, I think, during the Six-Day War, a very famous war in the Middle East. And during the Six-Day War, there was 1967, I think that was, and they were killing each other. Everything was going really bad, and the same problem we have today existed already back then. And so BBC, they went to Harold Macmillan and asked him, "Why, what are we going to do with the problem in the Middle East?" And he said, "There is no problem in the Middle East." What are you talking about? There's no problem. They're shooting each other, killing each other en masse, invading each other's countries. What do you mean there's no problem? He said there is no solution, and so there is no problem. That's a beautiful way of thinking. Yeah, why worry about things for which there is no solution? And this is the things in our life, all the things that we normally think about, they don't have a real solution. There is only one place where the solution is found, and that is on the spiritual path. There is a solution. There is a final outcome. There is a real goal. That is what makes the spiritual path unique. Whereas the ordinary samsaric existence of rebirth or going on and on and on, there is no solution. And the moment your values change like that, and you start to see what is truly valuable in the world, then your priorities change. You start focusing on other things. Other things become more important. And when your priorities change, then when you sit down in meditation, when you live your ordinary life, everything becomes different. You become more spiritual as a person. You focus, think about your existence in a different way. And that is what I'm hoping for you tonight. Then your mindfulness will be developed. Then your meditation will work. And maybe one day you also will achieve some of those beautiful, profound insights that is available for everyone in this world who practice in the right way. Okay, so that is my little talk for you this evening. Yeah. Yeah. So now I would like to give you the opportunity to ask questions, to disagree, to argue with me vehemently, to say why I'm wrong about what I said or whatever. So please feel free to ask questions, and you are also allowed to voice differences of opinions or whatever you would like. So. Yes, you want to ask a question? Yeah, please. Yeah. 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 Thank you. That's a very good point. People say when they're dying, they say, "Oh, if I could only unwind the time." In other words, they have a regret, yeah, for some of the things they have done. And it can be very useful to listen to people who are dying, yeah, and see what they say. And some of them may say, "I lived well," and okay, why did you live well? And they will tell you live well. Others will say, "Oh, I regret under this." Wow, okay, wow, so important to live well now. Now is the opportunity. Yeah. There are actually books about that, written about people who are, I think, nurses who were palliative care nurses who were looking after the dying, and so they know kind of the last words of the dying and how they precisely have these kind of issues sometimes. So yes, that's a very good point. Thank you for that. Okay, remember that if you want to be wise in the future life, you have to ask questions in this life. Yeah, that's what the Buddha said, apparently. So please feel free. And if you feel like your question is kind of, I know that people often think, oh, my question is just so stupid, I don't want to ask it. That's kind of a standard way of thinking. But please don't think like that. Because very often the simple questions are often the most important ones. These are the ones that kind of advance us of the path. Yeah, so please ask really basic questions. Yeah, like, why did you come to Penang? Yeah, what are you doing here? Or something like that. And you, okay, over here. Yeah.
Thank you for the talk. You did mention the spiritual is important, but I have thinking like the physical world, we become to this world.
Yeah.
We all need to experience certain physical human experience also. Then the part of spirituality, but also have a human experience. Like one of that you learn focus on prioritize both balance it.
Yeah.
We learn spiritually, we also learn go through human mistakes, then we also learn consider balance it out.
Okay.
Then focus on spirituality, then prioritize spirituality, then we some of the human experience, the purpose of we exist in this physical world may not fulfill this one.
Yeah. Okay. So when I say focusing on the spiritual side of things, I don't really mean that we should not focus on the worldly side or the physical side, as you say, or your work or your family or whatever. They actually go together. This is kind of my point. And so you focus. When you go to, let's say, you go to work. Now, if you focus on the spiritual side, it doesn't mean that you don't do your job well. You still do your job well, but you do it well for a different reason. You do it well out of kindness. You do it well out of compassion. You do it out of well because you want to be of service to people. You want to be of service to the world. The most beautiful thing is to live a life of service. And people don't understand that because the main beneficiary of living a life of service is the one who provides the service. And so he's the main, or she is the main beneficiary. And so you still do your physical things then. But instead of thinking, yeah, I'm going to get that raise, or I'm going to get promoted, or I hope the boss sees me now, yeah, I'm doing all this thing, or whatever it is, instead of having all of these kind of worldly motives, you're motivated by something more profound, something beautiful, something that really brings the world forward. And in my experience, the people who are often the most successful in corporate life, I mean, yes, there are some bad people, but often the people who are very good people actually are very successful. And I think one of the reasons is because they are trusted. Yeah, I have seen some people who have really good character, built up very large multinational companies. I have some acquaintances from a long time ago done incredibly well, and these were some of the best people I can imagine. So yes, maybe you can get ahead by being bad, but you can certainly get ahead also by being good. So you do the right thing. You do it for the right reasons, and success kind of comes along anyway. Yeah, it just happens. The same thing, I think, in family life. Yeah, in family life, yes, of course, we want to do the right thing, get our children to go to school and practice and whatever. But how do we do that? Okay, you can be very strict with the children, get straight A's. If you don't get straight A's, that's it. Yeah, I'm gonna, I don't know what people say to their children. But there is another way of doing that, and that is to treat your children with kindness and then assume that that kindness actually will lead to good results in the long run. In my opinion, what is more important than getting straight A's is to get a child that is emotionally well balanced, a child that feels good about itself, that has self esteem, has a feeling of self worth, that goes into the world with good feelings within them. And then when they meet other people, they have an ability to deal with situations because they feel good. But then you have the child that has been pushed to the limit to get straight A's, right? But doesn't have any self worth. Okay, so you may have those straight A's, but in the long run, you don't have that ability to deal with the world in the right way because you're not emotionally strong enough to deal with the world. love, compassion, understanding, kindness for our children, give them that resilience and ability to deal with things in the world. Okay, they may not be as successful in certain conventional ways. Maybe they get A minus instead of A or whatever it is. That's good enough. And maybe that A doesn't make so much difference. Maybe then, because they are more resilient, they actually become better later on because of the other aspects of the personality. And so this is kind of what I'm think. I don't think there is any difference between success in the worldly way, physical way, and the spiritual way. I think they go together if you think about it in the right way. That's kind of the purpose of my talk. My purpose is not to get every one of you to become monks and nuns. I don't expect you to come up here afterwards and kind of get your head shaven. I'd be happy to do it if you want to, but I'm not expecting that. Yeah, that's not really what I mean. I mean, bring spirituality into our more ordinary lives. That's what I'm talking about. Yeah. Please, of course you can. Yeah.
Yeah. Possible that every individual coming to this world, is there any like specific purpose of like the things that happen because we observe is due to specific reason things that happen, they need to happen, and we tell different people the different path that they have to do, and then bring to this physical world or market. Yeah.
There is, in a sense, this is a concept of karma vipaka. Yeah, you do karma, there are results. So there are certain things that you may have to experience, which can be very difficult. And so then the answer is, how do we deal with it? That's the kind of the significant thing here. And if you deal with those things in the right way, it will be tremendously beneficial for you. So it is not always the case that people who have an easy life become the best people. Sometimes the people who have very difficult lives become even better if they are able to deal with it. If they are wise with how they deal with those difficulties, they can come out of the other end as really, really good people. And so it is how we deal with it that actually is the important thing. So this is one of the things I was talking about before. When you see so many problems in the world, the wars, the refugees, the climate, all of these things kind of building up, and it looks like the whole planet is going to go off the rails. Actually, that's not going to happen. It's always going to go around the sun, so we are safe on that one. But so how do we react to all of these problems? Yeah, when we think about them in the right way, it becomes an aspect of right view, and right view is the foundation of the whole spiritual path. This is also the possibility when we have difficulties in life. Yeah.
Give like the meditation, mindfulness, give us an idea or guidance or understanding towards like the solution of the challenges that we face day to day, meditation, like
If it helps, you mean?
reflection.
Yeah. I mean, it helps certainly because. Yeah. Okay. There are maybe some others as well. So, but yes, of course, it helps because mindfulness gives you a degree of clarity. Mindfulness gives you an ability to see more clearly what is going on. You calm down, you get perspective, and then it's easy to resolve those problems. And then the Dhamma comes back in your mind, and that Dhamma then guides you in the right direction. It kind of gets you the right values and the right priorities as a consequence. So, absolutely, yeah. Thank you so much for those questions. That's great.
Brahmali, happy to be here.
Thank you.
My question is to get a better understanding of the night talk.
Yeah.
As we know, meditation, bhavana, is about mental development, personal development. Okay? Now, mindfulness is part of meditation. So when we are mindfulness, we are aware of our thoughts, our habits, our emotions. So my question is, this thing doesn't automatically change us mentally or physically. And I assume, right talk, we need to do actions in order to gain from the personal development.
Right.
What are the actions that I need to do?
Yeah. Okay. This in many ways is kind of what the talk, is meant to address. These kind of things, and I will explain it in a little bit more detail. Very often, is this idea that you're just aware of things, you're aware of your thoughts, you're aware of what's going on, and sometimes it doesn't get you anywhere. You're just aware. So what? Yeah, I'm aware. Okay, then what? And it doesn't actually deal with the underlying problems that you may have. And so what deals with the underlying problems is a change in perception. And, moving towards loving kindness, metta, moving towards compassion, that is actually what changes you internally. And then what you find is that next time you sit down in meditation, your thoughts have changed. You actually don't think in the same way you did before. You don't perceive in the same way. Your attitudes are changed. And so mindfulness has like many components. One aspect of mindfulness is like the mindfulness of daily life. That mindfulness of daily life is not just about being mindful, but being mindful so that you can change your attitudes, so you can become more compassionate, so you can become a more caring person. That is the point of mindfulness in daily life. Not just mindfully washing dishes, that doesn't do very much to you. But if you use that to contemplate your own mind, to be aware of your own thoughts, and then use the right view to change the way you think about things, then it becomes incredibly powerful, because then you are purifying yourself in a deep way. Then you come back to the meditation. Your mindfulness has increased, not because you were mindful in daily life, but because you changed your attitudes, your habits, the way you are. That is why your mindfulness becomes more powerful. Then, when you sit down, instead of just being aware, you can watch the breath. You can enter samadhi, and you can gain insights of a profound nature instead. So that's in brief, yeah, how I look at this. Wow, long way to walk around. Good exercise. Yeah.
Ajahn,
Please.
Yeah. Just to repeat what you say, maybe I get it wrong. I just want to reconfirm. You see, usually awareness, and when we have right view, we have right values. When we have right values, we have a strong mindfulness. That's what Ajahn was guiding us just now. One of the points I realize is even right view itself, sometimes when the defilements are very strong, it arises, and then seconds later, you have the right view. So what is the missing element that sustains the right view before the action?
Yeah.
It is metta to ourselves, more metta when we make the mistakes seconds later, minutes later, because it doesn't trigger, like, if I'm aware of awareness, the defilements come on. Some is like minutes or seconds, then only the right view comes up to remind you. But it's just too late. The speech sometimes is just too late. So what is the missing element that I've been noticing that it comes up so fast?
So,
even though we know,
yeah.
sorry.
Okay, yeah. So the thing is that, these things kind of develop sometimes, but it takes time for these things to develop properly. Yeah, it's not going to happen straight away. So what you have to do is to catch the mind very quickly. So very often the defilement or the negative thought, it kind of gets a foothold in the mind. And once it gets a foothold, it's very hard to get rid of it again. The more mindfulness you have, the earlier you will catch that defilement arising in the mind. And then when you catch it early, then the right view will help you to get rid of it. Yeah, so the right view will then, first of all, will tell you, this is not a good idea. Secondly, the right view will give you the mechanism or the method for how to overcome it. Yeah, okay, actually, I should be compassionate to this person. They don't know what they're doing. That sort of thing, that's the method. And so it takes time, but over time, you catch it earlier, until you're able to deal with that defilement. In the meantime, one of the most important things, what I always tell people at the end of a retreat, I was just teaching a retreat in KL before I came here, and I give a lot of teachings. I usually use the suttas, the Buddha's word, as a basis for my teachings. And I taught a lot in KL with ridiculous hours of teaching, sometimes maybe too much. I don't know, they seem to be happy with it, but whatever. And so at the end of the retreat, I tell them, there's only one thing I would like you to remember from this retreat. I can summarize these 40 hours of teaching in 10 seconds. Right? So actually, you only need to come for 10 seconds. That's enough. Yeah? So forget about this past 8 days or whatever. There's one thing to remember, that's kindness. And then I asked them, are you able to remember kindness? And they say, yes, yes, we can remember kindness. I said, no, you can't remember kindness. You will forget it sometimes because it's impossible to always remember kindness. It's actually very hard. And so then I said the way to remember kindness is to always come back to these teachings again and again and again, to inspire yourself, to remind yourself what is important. And that is really what you need to do as well. That view needs to be established again and again and again till it comes deeper and deeper inside of you. It becomes that power at the back of your mind, which is always there, overseeing your actions, overseeing your thoughts, overseeing your speech. So come back to these teachings. Have your favorite teacher, whoever that is, and someone who teaches in accordance with the suttas, with the word of the Buddha. That's really important. And then inspire yourself. Someone who has the ability to inspire you, to lift you up, to remind you why this is important, re-establish that right view. And then over time, this thing kind of moves on and on. And then next year, hopefully, you are more and more aware. Your view is stronger and you have the ability to do this more. So every year you watch yourself. Next year I'll come back and I will look out for you and I will ask you if you have improved and see what happens. And maybe if not, I will ask. No, I can't really do that. So no, that's impossible. I'm not going to go down that road. But that gives you a rough idea how this works. Gradually coming out of this.
Thank you, Ajahn Brahmali, for the excellent talk. When I was a small boy, my father used to teach me that if there's a problem, do not find fault, do not search for fault, but find solution.
Yeah.
Now, if there's no solution, how can you solve the problem? Whatever you I mean, your thought is excellent. You're talking about the spiritual path, compassion, forgiveness, kindness. But how to solve? What's the solution to solve the problem?
Well, this is the point. The other point is that the solution ultimately is the practice of the spiritual path. I mean, there are solutions in real life problems as well. I mean, there are kind of solutions, but they are not really final solutions. They're temporary solutions, and the problem returns. Another problem is just waiting behind the previous problem. That's kind of one of the things that you see in life is that as soon as you have resolved something, something else turns up. And this is kind of goes on like this until you die. And then you die, you get reborn, there's another problem waiting for you when you get reborn. So it just goes on and on. So the point is that, yes, there are temporary solutions to things in this world, but they don't actually get you to any final conclusion or final solution. So if you want to come to a real goal, the real purpose, a real aim, a real ending of things, the spiritual path is the answer. So you integrate the spiritual path into your ordinary life, and then things really start to happen. Very good. Yeah, please.
If I know that I'm approaching death, the last few breaths, what time, how would you suggest that I think my mindfulness during my last moments?
How to keep your mindfulness during the last minutes?
Last moments.
Okay, are you coming close to those last moments? Yeah, preparing, good. No, that's good. I'm glad. Great, yeah. So that's exactly what we should be doing. Yeah. So how do you keep your mindfulness? Well, the way you do that is by living as good as you possibly can. Yeah, now during this life, and the better you live now, between now and the moment it happens, the more powerful will be your mindfulness when you come to your death. That's kind of the most important thing. That's why karma, is what that really is about, and that allows that mindfulness to be there. But when you eventually get to your deathbed, the best way to have mindfulness is invite Ajahn Brahm into your room. Ask Ajahn Brahm, tell you a few jokes to be happy. A happy heart is mindful. Happy heart means that you have clarity of mind usually. So prepare, say to your family before you die, tell them, okay, when you come into my room, tell me nice things. Tell me good things. And the best way, the ideal thing is if you can also encourage other people when they die, then you learn also to prepare yourself for your own death. And so if you have a chance to help someone else die well, take that opportunity. If you have a family member in hospital, they're dying, go to them. Go to them, tell you how you appreciate them. tell you what about them that you really liked. Yeah, okay, if you're some family member dies, so you have been a really good family member to me. Yeah, actually, I remember all of these things. Thank you so much for being such a good friend and a good uncle or whatever it might be that that person is. And I can guarantee you, if you say that to a person who's not used to it, you're going to touch them in a very deep way. I did that before my father died a few years ago. And before he died, he had cancer. I knew he was kind of coming to the end. I wrote him a long letter, saying, thank you so much for being a good father. And I kind of listed those things up. But I thought, you have to really go into detail. You have to show that it really is sincere, otherwise it doesn't work. And I could feel that he was really touched by that. He had been criticized by me for 40 years, right? And finally, I say something positive. It's like, wow, what happened to my son? Yeah, this Buddhist is really working, obviously. So it's kind of a nice way of kind of getting them to look at the Dhamma also in a good way. So these are the things we can do for people, on their deathbed. We can do it, actually we should do it all the time. We shouldn't wait for the deathbed. But certainly we should do it on the deathbed. And so by encouraging people in that way, then when you come to your death, well then you will already, your mind will already incline in that direction. And hopefully you can get someone to talk to you in that way. So invite someone on your deathbed who you know are going to say things that are useful to you. Someone who you kind of has some wisdom. Ajahn Brahm or whoever it might be. And then you spend time alone on your deathbed. Don't spend it with too many people. Very often we say that we want to have our loved ones around us when we die. But the best way to die is alone. If you can be peaceful with that, if you can enjoy that solitude that allows you to collect your mind, that allows you to let go of the world, if your loved ones are always around you, actually that can lead to attachment in the dying process. So being alone is often the best way, if that feels right to you. Collect it together, then die peacefully, move on in a good way.
Do we have any other questions? Okay. Otherwise, this will be the last two questions.
Ajahn, I understand this morning you visited the Ujang Valley. Ujang Valley is a archaeological site for Buddhism and Hinduism. So I have two questions here. Question number one, as a monk, what is your feeling when you visit such a site in terms of the Buddhism's history? And as a layperson, if I go there, if I go to any Buddhism historical site, how do I behave or what I need to do?
Okay. Thank you for those questions. Those are really nice questions, actually. So one of the main reasons for me to go to these sites is to get a kind of connection with the larger Buddhist world, to get a feeling for the Dhamma in the bigger picture. Really, what I prefer to go is to India. That's my preferred place to go. I've been to India many times, go to the holy places over there. And that, to me, is the most powerful thing. Going in the footsteps of the Buddha, and knowing the Buddha sat here and you sit in the same place. It's kind of, whoa, it's really kind of awesome. And so that gets you into a feeling, a feeling of something very special. And the idea here, Bujang Valley, is a little bit like that, getting a feeling of the Dhamma, been around for a long time. People have been practicing here, people have been living well, all these kind of things. I have to admit that Bujang Valley does not have the same power as India, obviously. But it still kind of connects you to something larger, at least a little bit. And this whole area was part of the Srivijaya, kingdom a long time ago. And that's kind of, it's kind of nice. It teaches you many things. It teaches you how powerful the Dhamma was in moving around the world. It teaches something about impermanence. Suddenly it's gone. If you think about it in the right way, that too will encourage you to live well now. But the most important thing to me is actually not so much going to Bujang Valley, but going to those real holy places in India. That, to me, is the most powerful thing. This is actually quite subsidiary. I was invited, so I accepted it, but it wasn't that important to me, to be honest. India, far more important. So if you do go to India, which I would recommend, bring someone who is able to bring the holy sites alive. It really matters. Someone, when you go there, they can tell you some of the stories, what happened with the Buddha. can do it in a way that actually is believable. You get to feel in that. You get a feel for the place, right? You sit down, you meditate together, close your eyes, just feel what these places are like. And some of the places in India have become tourist sites, and I would say they're not as powerful as they should be. But then there are places that are far away. When we went there, came back from India in December. I was in December now, and some of the places still are far away. There's no people, anything like that. And you close your eyes and you try to feel. Okay, you know the Buddha was here. The Vulture Peak, the Gijjakuta is one of those beautiful places. You go there early in the morning. There's pretty much nobody there. It's still dark. Close your eyes and you feel the place, and it's kind of very interesting when you do that. So go with someone who brings it alive, someone who can teach you some of the stories and suttas that actually happened there at that time. So you get the feeling, of the Buddha being there. And now you are walking in those footsteps. The Buddha is the greatest spiritual master in human history. The Buddha is someone really extraordinary. This person who has this ability to just walk off into the forest and solve the question of what is the meaning of life. The meaning of life is this question that no one really has been able to grapple with. Philosophers and spiritual people have been dealing with this for thousands of years without really finding the solution. Then comes this one person with extraordinary spiritual capabilities, is able to solve the most profound thing that possibly can be solved in the human realm. This is what we're dealing with here. It's something really extraordinary here. This is the Buddha. It has some of the qualities maybe here. And so that is how you bring it alive and actually make it something special. So thank you for that question.
Let's have the last question.
The younger generation, that's wonderful. Please.
So what I'm asking, karma is a powerful form of karma at the time of death. So how can we make a good karma at that time?
At which time? When you pass away? No, sorry.
When we are nearing the death time.
Yeah. Okay.
The asana karma is the karma that works most at that time.
Okay.
So how can we make a good karma with a mindfulness?
Which karma did you say? There's a Pali word there you're saying. What is the Pali word? Asanya karma?
Asana karma, yes.
Okay. So there's 4 kinds of karma. This is actually from the commentaries where we talk about 4 different kinds of karma: the death proximate karma, the ordinary karma, the kind of specially powerful karma, and these kind of things. And so, I'm not entirely sure exactly which one you're referring to there, but I think one of the things that I discovered when I was reading the sutras, that this idea that death proximate karma is very important is actually not found in the sutras. This is like a commentarial thing here. And I think one of the reasons why there is this difference is because according to the commentaries and like the broader Theravada tradition or early Buddhist tradition, there is no intermediate state. There is no, from one life to the next one, you just go bang, straight to one from the other. They have what they call the Chuti-Chitta, according to the Abhidhamma, when you come to the last moment in this life, and the next one is called the Patisandha-Vinyada, the relinking consciousness, bang, you go into the next life. And so if there is nothing in between, then you can see why the last thought in the previous life is so important, because it leads straight to the next one. But to me, all the evidence in the early sutras suggests that there is something in between. If you hear about the near-death experience that people have, there's some very interesting near-death experiences. I would really recommend you to read about some of those if you find that interesting. Near-death experiences, there are some very. I don't know. I've read a book recently called After by maybe the world's most famous near-death experience researcher, an American man called Bruce Grayson. And he talks about all of these experiences that ordinary people have. These are really ordinary people, man. And it's kind of, they become changed as people when they have this experience. They go out of their body, they kind of meet some, greater sense of love or compassion in the world. They get a different perspective on life. They know that something happens after you die, all of these kind of things. And so they become different people. When they come back again afterwards, because they kind of die, but they don't really die, they come back again, then they look upon the world in a very different way. And they think, wow, okay, I want to be kind now because I understand the bigger picture. You become more kind by having these experiences. But the interesting thing was that it's not just those people that have the near-death experiences that are affected. Those people who read about those experiences become affected. Yeah. So when you read about it, you are going to become a different person afterwards. You're going to become more kind. You gain a larger perspective of the world. So I would really, really recommend you to read those things. These are the things that really change you. And what they point to is that there is something in between one life and the next one. Yeah, and I think that this is one of the places where the Theravada tradition is wrong, to be honest with you. I don't believe the Theravada tradition in this case. I think that the Buddha actually said that there was such a thing. And that changes the whole equation, because that means the moment you die is no longer so important, because there is a time in between. During that time in between, you may have a life review. That life review is kind of suggested in the sutras already. Yeah, it's kind of almost there. And so you have a life review. What does that mean? It means that you look upon how you lived your life and you kind of evaluate yourself. It's like this kind of sheet. Yeah, it's like an accountant. Yeah, bad over here, good over there. It's like the debit and credit sheet. Yeah, ding, 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 and it sums up. You come to the end. Yeah, so what is your sum? And so you kind of judge yourself. And that seems to be the case in some of these near-death experiences, that you judge yourself in this way. And that judgment is based not on your last thought, it is based on your overall, how you have lived your life. That is the most important thing. And that, of course, is exactly what the Buddha talks about when he talks about karma and vipaka. Karma is all the actions that you do during your life. Sum that up, that decides your destiny in the future. So live really, really well. That's kind of the point here, really. Okay with that? Yeah.
There's no intermediate state between death and the next life.
There is no
intermediate stage, like between life, between the death and the next life. There is no.
I think there is a. Yeah, that's the point I'm trying to make, right? So I think that is a mistake in the Theravada tradition. This is a Theravada idea that there is no intermediate life. But there are many traditions in Buddhism. The early Buddhist texts, there were many schools in the early time of Buddhism. There were Sarvastivadins, there were Dharmaguptakas, there were Sutrantikas, there was Mahasangikas, there was Shtaviravadas. There was a large number of different schools. And some of those schools said that there was intermediate life, some said they were not. These were all early Buddhist schools. They were not later things or anything like that. And so all the evidence points to that there actually was an intermediate existence. Yeah, you go somewhere, there is this thing between. That's why the last moment at death is not so important, because there is that time in between. That's where your karma ripens and where kind of your future is determined, if you like, because of that. Okay? Yeah? Okay, good. Yeah.
Thank you very much for the insightful Dharma teachings. As you can see, Ajahn depth of knowledge of the Pali Canon, the suttas, the monks who do before this interpretation of the Vinaya as well. So we are very fortunate to have people like Ajahn. Their depth of knowledge of the Pali Canon is really, really strong. And we appreciate it very much. We have full house to make as well.
Okay, great.
And I hope this will be the first of many visits to teachers. Correct? Yes?
Okay. Good. Yeah. Shall we end off by sharing merits and things? Yeah. 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 I have learned the words Qingming since I came to Malaysia, so that's kind of wonderful. So let's share the merit with our departed relatives because of the Qingming season or whatever you call it. So, yeah, please, yeah.
We have donations at the back.
Yeah.
And there's
Okay, yeah, sure. I will, yeah, so maybe it would be nice for me just to give a very brief idea of what the donations are going to go to. So if you do feel like giving a donation, so you have some idea what it will go to, can be nice. So one of the things that we are doing at the moment in Perth, in the BSWA, we are helping to establish a monastery for nuns in Sri Lanka. Already in Sri Lanka, there's a very strong tradition for nuns. They have a large number of bhikshunis in Sri Lanka. But the training, I go to Sri Lanka every couple of years and I teach retreats and over there. Last time I was there, lots of monks and nuns come on my retreat. And so I had an opportunity to chat with the nuns. And one of the things I realized is how badly supported they are. Yeah, it was really heartbreaking to see how bad it was. Often the facilities they have are not good. They're kind of in the city, in noisy areas, don't have proper facilities for meditation properly in a secluded place, don't have good training, don't really understand the rules properly, don't have an understanding of the early Buddhist texts, don't have good meditation teachers. I asked some of them, I said, where do you get your meditation teachers? Oh, I have this book I'm reading, yeah? And I look at the book and it's good enough, but not ideal, some of the things there. And yet they were good meditators. Yeah, they had some good results. They were really good people. And I felt so sorry that they haven't got good facilities and good support. And so what I did, because I was there, I said, okay, I said, come together. Brought everyone together, all the lay people. We have some very strong support in Sri Lanka, the BSWA, including Ajahn Brahm especially. We got the lay people, the nuns and the monks together. And I said, why don't we establish a monastery in Sri Lanka with the right kind of training that is connected with the Buddhist Society of Western Australia? We can have common teachings, maybe over Zoom and these kind of things. We can have exchange programs, nuns and monks going back, not so much monks, but at least nuns going back and forth. Yeah, and then we can establish something beautiful that can be, first of all, attractive for those nuns who are really inspired by practicing the path fully, and also maybe be a light, a beacon for the rest of Sri Lanka, how to do this in the right way. And so this is what we are in the process of doing now. And we already have an organization almost established in Sri Lanka. We have a special bank account set up at the BSWA specifically for this project, so that you can know that your donations go to the right place. They will go into that specific bank account, and then eventually they will be then used in Sri Lanka through the organization that is established in Sri Lanka. That organization is called the Ajahn Brahm Society of Sri Lanka. So they are really staunch Ajahn Brahm disciples. I know those people very well. They are very professional and people with very, very high integrity. So we have a very good group going. So any donation you offer tonight is going to go for that project. That is the idea. So just to let you know that. So now let us share the merit for tonight. And please, as we do this, think of your departed relatives and just wish them well and share the merit in your mind with them. Edan me nyate nang hotu sukita hantu nyatayo. Edan me nyate nang hotu sukita hantu nyatayo. Edang me nyati nang hotu sukita hantu nyatayo. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Okay, so that is all for tonight, I suppose. Yeah, very good. Okay, thank you everyone for coming, and I wish you all the very best. And maybe we shall meet in the future. We'll see what happens. Life is uncertain. Okay.